That's what you're going to see. Okay, what's going to happen under Obamacare if it goes forward is terrible. Terrible. You go to these socialist countries and see what their health care is all about. You see the waiting lines. You see people that can't get treatment because there's not enough money in the government till. Okay? No, it's not a good thing. So the unintended consequence is it's going to be worse than what it was. But people like Obama and the socialists and communists that he surrounds himself with are happy with it because the government's in control. They want the government putting the boot on everything.
So do you agree with the statement that localities, cities, municipalities should be able to control their own laws and policies within their...
Absolutely. Okay. I'm a 10th Amendment supporter. I believe in state sovereignty.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, speaking on the 10th Amendment and state sovereignty, I understand you are carrying a firearm,
absolutely,
which is absolutely legal in the state of Kentucky,
yes, sir,
without having a permit.
Yes.
And as you know, the Supreme Court just overruled Chicago. Chicagoans are not, before they were not allowed to have handguns.
Right.
And Supreme Court...
Yet they have one of the highest crime rates in the nation. Isn't that interesting?
And the Supreme Court just said that that is unconstitutional. They're not allowed to do that. But under your understanding, it would seem that that's an outreach of federal government power telling Chicago that they can't limit handguns. They're a city, and if you believe that a city should be able to regulate their own citizenry and create their own policies, it seems that they should be allowed to eliminate handguns.
That's a very good question. That is an awesome question.
It seems to be a contradictory statement.
Yes, that's a very good question, and I haven't looked at it in those terms, but what I would say right now, just flying off the cuff, without really having time to have thought about it, I would say this. I would say if the people of Chicago said that's what they wanted, not the government, but if the people went to the government and addressed them and said, this is what we want, you are our representatives, we empower you, we want this, then I'm all for it.
So that's referendum.
Yes,
put it on a ballot, and let
but don't step on them and tell them we're going to force you to do this. Don't do that.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think once the people of Chicago educate themselves and go out and find out that everywhere in the country where you have concealed carry and open carry, crime is lower than these cities like Chicago, D.C., Boston, L.A., whatever, where they have the strictest gun control laws. Their crime is through the roof. You know, the crook doesn't want to mess with you when you're armed. He wants a pacifist.
So I'd be correct in assuming that you are very individual liberties. That's a key concept in today's America.
You better believe.
Do you believe
that's what this is all about?
Yeah. Do you believe there's a balance between individual liberties and social order? Do you believe that maybe some individual liberties should be maybe curtailed to control, like to have social order? You know, when you had in the 50s and 60s, you had Mississippi and Alabama. They were able to segregate lunch counters, segregation, and the federal government stepped in so there could be some form of social order. Complete individual liberty is anarchy. Is there a balance, or should it be completely individual liberty?
No government at all, as far as you can go, is anarchy. Total government, which is where we're headed now, is tyranny. And in the middle, where our founders set us up with our Constitution and Declaration of Independence and Northwest Ordinance, is where we're supposed to be. We have allowed these treasonous people in Congress to divert us from that and move us away from it. And that's what's wrong. Now, on the issue you spoke of, the segregation in the South, that was totally went against our Constitution, which is based on the Ten Commandments and God's law. And you can't not defy the Constitution. Okay? Whatever's in that Constitution, the entire country has to obey. Everything else is left up to the states. That was addressed in our Constitution, that all men are created equal. So in that case, the federal government was right to correct it.
Absolutely. So in some circumstances, the federal government does have a place in our daily lives.
The circumstance is whatever the Constitution says. If it's not in the Constitution, get away from it. If it's in the Constitution and it's enumerated and you have the power to do that, do it and do it well.
But do you not believe that the framers of the Constitution made it an ambiguous document because they expected it to stand the test of time? they knew that it was a document that would be interpreted, so it could stand the test of time and change with things, so people could interpret it and new laws could be formed from it. Because it seems hard to think that the Constitution, as it stands now, if everything had to be based on the Constitution, it seems like we wouldn't have anything that we have now. There would be no public roads because the Constitution doesn't say we can have public roads.
Well, we could have public roads that aren't pushed by the federal government, but that are done by the states. And states can cooperate with one another and make their roads meet. We still could have had that. I don't. You use one word that I don't use. Framers. Framers. Okay. The reason I don't use the word framers is, let's look at a building. Okay. Let's look at this building right here. The frame of that building can be changed at any time. Carpenters can come in and move walls and change it and make it anything they want inside. The foundation of that building will never change. That building will always stand on that foundation. That's why I call them founders. And that's a very important distinction. Words are very important.
It's very solid.
It's like America's a republic, we're not a democracy. But for the last 50 years, people have been trained to call us a democracy. We're not a democracy. We're a constitutional republic. People don't know what that means. We've got to fix it.